done. I'll try and fix you now. We're now streaming to Mixer, and we are streaming to YouTube. Color. I should just turn down the contrast. That'll do. Yeah, my camera's really bad today. And my mic's really bad. If you can hear us, I apologise for the quality of my side of the show today. It's not up to scratch, I know.
Alright, I'm sending out the tweet. You are mentioned.
Oh, that's fantastic. I've got to pop these chats out. Colour. What am I doing? Pop out chats. And then go away, and then go away.
And my typing face looks terrible. I need to work on that.
Yeah. Oh great, now your audio's delaying itself. Why is it doing that?
Yeah, I look intense on YouTube.
Yeah. Right, so your audio is delayed, but I can't fix that. The Surface Book 2 is just not powerful enough to keep up.
You hear that, Panos?
Yeah. Fix it. It should be fine. Just don't look at the video this week, guys.
Don't look at my face.
Yeah. Alright, let me pull up the voice recorder.
Yeah, mute this.
Let's see what my CPU usage is like. Actually, I'm guessing it's more the RAM that's causing this. I've only got 8 gigs in my Surface laptop. Surface Book, sorry.
That's gross.
Yeah. 81%. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. I might actually turn on noise removal. We'll be beginning just a second. Sorry, guys, we are running a bit behind today. My fault. If you don't like it, I don't care. Let's do that. Okay. Is that any better? Testing 1, 2, 3. Once again. Testing 1, 2, 3. Once again. That's actually a lot better. All right, we'll keep it to that. All right. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Oh, let me close my door. Hold on.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm ready to go. Oh no, I'm not. I closed the damn voice recorder like an
At some
idiot.
point, my cat's going to wake up and start screaming.
All right. I'm ready to go when you are.
I'm ready. Now recording.
I am now recording.
This is episode 136, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Hey, everyone. Sorry, I didn't write it out. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 136 for June 7th, 2019. Hey, everyone. Dan Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. This week, we'll be talking about Microsoft shows off Project Centaurus, or at least that's what we're calling it. Now, we should point out it's not officially showing off, so you didn't miss that much news. But internally, they've been showing this stuff off, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And if you don't know what Centaurus is, that's cool, because we'll explain it to you. We'll also talk about some new UWP apps. So we've been obviously talking about a lot about the Universal Windows Platform this week, and the last week, and the week before then. And some devs got together and created some really nice apps, actually, that really demonstrate the power of the platform. And so we'll briefly go through that. And it was a coordinated thing that they're going to do every year, apparently, which I thought was really awesome of this group. We'll also talk about Google Stadia. Some news came out this week about that. And we'll talk about whether it's a good value or not. It seems like people are kind of divided about this or are not that excited. And this may be where Microsoft actually has a leg up on them. We'll also talk about some E3 news and expectations for Microsoft as stuff apparently continues to leak and trickle out right before E3 begins on this Sunday. Zach, where are you this week? You're not home at your
I'm not
usual
home,
spot.
so my microphone doesn't sound as good. Neither does my video look good either. I am at my parents' right now because of some family thing. But yeah, so that's my Surface Book 2 right now is boiling hot because we're doing the stream from that for a change. It's not doing too well, but at least it's keeping up right now.
Yeah, in fairness, you only have 8 gigs of RAM, which
I do. I cheaped out on the RAM. I
I
should have
remember
done
that. You're like, that's all I need. And technically,
Yeah,
that is all you need,
this is the
unless you're
first
doing
time
this.
it's been a problem. So yeah,
Yeah, streaming is still a CPU intensive
it
and
is.
RAM intensive task. So, but live and learn. At least maybe you'll get a Surface Book 3 later this year. That could
That
happen.
would be nice.
That would be nice. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the news this week. So, what is this with Centaurus? First of all, explain Centaurus. Explain what you've heard. How this maybe not actually news, because like you and I were kind of like laughing about this because you told me months ago that they've been showing it off internally, and you even had some feedback about like what was shown, and it was really
Yeah.
impressive.
So,
But
so
explain, yeah,
so Microsoft has actually been talking about its plans for dual screen PCs for a while now. I've started hearing about all hands meetings where they sort of talk about this and show off some stuff. Back in February, I believe it was. So this week, news broke that Microsoft had actually shown off Centaurus, which, for those who don't know, Centaurus is the code name for a dual-screen foldable built by Microsoft, likely the Surface team. That's slightly bigger than an Andromeda. So Andromeda was a pocketable dual-screen device. This is more like a laptop tablet sized dual screen device. So think of the Lenovo foldable that we saw a couple of weeks back. It's very similar to that, except it uses two screens, as far as I'm aware, joined together with a hinge mechanism, just like Andromeda was, just like the Courier was. And that's kind of what Microsoft is building here. They're trying to resurrect the Courier, but this time running Windows Core OS, more specifically Windows Lite. And this week they showed off this device in a sort of sizzle video to a whole bunch of employees at Microsoft outside of the Surface team, which, according to Mary Jo Foley, is rather unprecedented, and I believe that's the case. I do not think the Surface team has ever shown off an unreleased device internally that broadly in that way. It's obviously the people who need to know about it get to know about it, but just showing employees like, hey guys, we're working on this, that's very unique to this specific device. And the question has been why? Why did they do this? And I don't have a direct answer to that. No one's been able to tell me why exactly they showed it off. But I'm guessing
I have two theories.
Go for it. What's your theories?
One, you and some others have leaked so much info at this point that it's an open secret.
Right.
So there's that. Two, I would imagine they showed it off to some of the Windows. I'm curious if who they showed it off to. If it was some of the people working on Windows, specifically Windows Core.
Yeah.
Because those people are working basically blindfolded. They get orders and they're told, okay, do this. We need to have this. It needs to support that. But they don't necessarily know what they're creating this for or how it's going to be used. I mean, they could surmise, hey, we need dual screen support, or, it's like, oh, I guess we're doing something more with dual screens. But this may be a way to show them like, hey, all that stuff you guys have been doing with Windows Core OS and this, new UI system, everything, this is why. And I imagine if I was working on that project from the software side and had no idea what I was doing and I saw that, a fire would be lit under me. I'd be like, oh, damn, that looks awesome.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we're doing? Oh, okay. It's maybe just a motivational thing to those people, because that would be a huge motivator for me. I know that.
Yeah,
But
no,
that's my theory.
I kind of agree with that. I think what they were trying to do is sort of just say, hey guys, the things you're working on, there is a reason for it. Here's the reason. We want to. Maybe they talked about I guess they didn't, because otherwise that would have leaked. I think all they literally did is show off the device and the idea of what this form factor will be. And like I said, they have been talking about their plans for dual screens for a while now. I believe they showed off another dual screen or a foldable PC a couple of months back, and they talked a lot about or showed off some unique ideas for how you can type on that device, even though it doesn't have a physical keyboard. What things could you do to make typing on a device like that more comfortable? So Microsoft are looking into this. Obviously, the entire ecosystem that Microsoft wants to build here, they are looking at these problems, trying to solve them. Regarding when Centaurus is coming, nobody knows. There's not a set date. When I originally heard about it, Centaurus was pinned in for being announced / released at the end of this year. But Windows Lite, which is the operating system it's supposed to run, is not coming until 2020. So if they do announce it at the fall of this year, that will be a sort of pre-announcement. They'll be like, "Hey, here's a device we're working on. This won't be coming until spring next year." Which honestly, I think that's allowed. I think they can do that. I don't think that's much of a problem because lots of people are like, what if they pre-announce it and then like the hype dies down before it goes on sale? But I think that's very easily avoidable. They could do like sort of a tease at the end of this October event, say, hey, we're working on something really cool. Here's a tease. And then they can do another event in the spring where they announce some more devices, plus this Centaurus device shipping with Windows Lights.
It is interesting how they may slide into this rather successfully. So the concern, of course, which I pointed out, it's not a huge concern, was Samsung was beating them to the punch, right, with this foldable display stuff and sort of stealing the thunder. But then as we quickly came to realize, it's not always good to be first, especially when you're doing these new concepts. And then Huawei was going to step in there with their Mate X, which some are arguing was a better design. And it's like, all right, Huawei, you're up. And then Huawei gets screwed by the U.S. government. And now that device, who knows what's happening with that? Sure as hell won't be on sale in the United States, that's for sure. And granted, I think Samsung will rebound here. So I think Samsung will still be first to it. But the delta between those releases and what Microsoft may come out with, and also the ThinkPad X1 foldable that we saw, seems to have shrunk considerably. And I think the more this info gets out there, and I've said this previously on a few podcasts ago when we were talking about the X1, is that when people see these foldable type PC devices, and we've only seen one, right? So at least in the true sense what we're talking about, we haven't even seen the operating system yet. I think as people see this stuff and as we see more, I think people are going to come around to the idea like, hey, that actually makes a little bit more sense, a foldable tablet PC than a foldable phone. Not that foldable phones aren't going to be a thing or they're just going to be a fad. I don't agree with that at all. I think they're going to be just as big. But, of course, someone's at my doorbell now. Oh, well, we'll have to get them back later. I have rings, so it just rings everywhere when it goes off. It's really annoying. But I think foldable phones are still going to be a big, big deal. I just think that foldable PCs and tablets, because the larger the device is, if you can fold it, it takes up half the space. It makes more of an impact if it's a 13-inch tablet versus a phone, right? So I think that's kind of a big deal. But I guess we'll have to kind of wait and see with that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I also agree it's easier to go bigger than smaller. I think it's easier to convince someone of a smaller version if it started big first. That's kind of what smartphones are, right? Oh, here's a PC in your pocket. If smartphones came out first, I'm like, why? Who wants to do all of that on this tiny thing? But yeah, I think if you go big than small, it makes more sense to a lot of people. So yeah, that's what Centaurus is. We don't really know much else about it. When I first heard about it, I was told it's an Intel device. They might have changed that. It might be an ARM device at this point. Obviously, prototyping, things can change. But at the time, it was described to me as an Intel-based device. Microsoft was working with Intel on it. I believe it's a 12 or 13-inch device when folded out, which I guess when in sort of laptop mode or something will be considerably smaller. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, so we don't know much about the device. We do know Microsoft has shown it off internally, so there is movement on that front. It is Windows Core OS powered, as is most of Microsoft's future hardware efforts, other than obviously the more standard Surface Book, Surface Pro stuff. And yeah, I think it's very exciting. Hopefully, Microsoft starts talking about this more broadly very soon, because last week we talked about the modern OS stuff. Microsoft has started talking about Windows Core OS.
It feels like the gears are starting to churn, right?
It does feel like that. And a few weeks ago, me and Dan were talking to a few Microsoft people, and they did say that at that time, they were internally discussing how they want to start talking about this stuff. So the discussion has been ongoing, and now the gears are slowly but surely beginning to turn.
Yeah, and I guess for me, the big question, of course, is going to be the implementation. Are we looking at actual, because there's been two rumors about these devices. It's going to have two glass displays that curve rounded in the center, and they have that technology where it bends the light so the light doesn't curve, so it gives the appearance that there's no gap there. Are they going to go with that design, which seems a little bit safer, gives you a little bit more flexibility? Technically, I guess in theory, the device could open both ways, which would be kind of interesting. You'd also get a glass experience, which, is a little bit safer long term compared to plastic displays, which is foldable. Or are they going to go down the foldable route, which has benefits. It's definitely more, I say, wow worthy.
Yeah.
But there's some trade-offs there. You're going to get a plastic screen. Obviously, the tech has to evolve, so it's a lot more reliable. My hunch, if I had to bet, Microsoft would go with two displays,
Me too.
glass, because they're pretty conservative. Even though they create radical new devices, the technologies they tend to adopt for those tend to be more on the conservative ends. And I think they'd rather let their partners take the risks and put them out there with this different tech. So, but that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, regarding Andromeda, because obviously lots of people keep mentioning Andromeda. There's no movement on that front right now. I do think Microsoft wants to ship Centaurus first. It makes sense to do that, and if Centaurus is a successful device, if that sort of ecosystem kicks off and is rather popular, then the idea of a smaller, pocketable version might make more sense. But until then, the movement on the Andromeda side of things, it's going nowhere at this time. Telephony on Centaurus, I don't believe there'll be phone call capabilities. It will have LTE, of course, and I guess 5G capabilities, maybe. I don't know. But it will have LTE, and you'll be able
My
to
guess
take
is
it.
no 5G.
Yeah,
My reasoning for that is obviously 5G is still early. I think 5G will be a bigger story in 2020 for certain. But again, Microsoft tends to not go bleeding edge anymore.
yeah.
5G, from what I've seen, is pretty complicated in terms of the antenna schemes required to make it work, whether you're talking about millimeter wave or the other tech, which now I forgot its name. It's way more complicated, complicates the design process. There's also the whole, like, how many people are going to benefit from it from Gen 1, right?
Right.
So, and we've seen even with LTE, they're pretty conservative with putting that in there. But obviously, I would expect LTE on board, so that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I don't know. This is neat stuff. Like I said, gears are turning. We're starting to hear a little bit more about all this stuff. So as we move towards the fall, I'm sure a little bit more info will come out.
Yeah.
Let's turn our attention to UWP. Specifically, a group of developers have actually banded together and have been working in secret for this very day on June 7th for what they're calling Launch 2019. And they basically, I think 3 or 4 new apps. So not a huge amount, but they're really good apps. So we'll go through them real quickly. First of all, MyTube 4.0. MyTube's been a staple UWP app for a long time. The dev is just really, really good. Frequent updates. So 4.0 is now in beta, and I've been using it today. The biggest change I've noticed, and this was a complaint a long time ago with MyTube, when you would scrub on the video, you'd fast forward, jump behind, move a little cursor thing. It would either crash or it wouldn't play again, or there'd be stuttering issues. That seems, and that's gotten better actually, even in the current 3X version. But 4.0, all the design controls are different, everything, and it performs much better. Like I can just move the cursor around, it's like instant play, no issues, no crashes so far. And to me, that's one of the biggest deals. The design's also been updated. It's even more fluency, more modern looking. Doesn't have the name in the taskbar. So this group is really saying, let's take the best in all that new stuff that Microsoft's been announcing in terms of UWP, APIs, fluent design, the new Win UI controls, and we'll start implementing that. And so MyTube 4.0, it's just awesome. If you're not using it, it actually changed my behavior and how I used YouTube. YouTube for me was always, I would click a link, someone would share me like, I'll watch this video. I'll click that link and open the website and I'd watch the video. And once in a while I'd go to the YouTube page. It was just a mess. I didn't really like it. Ever since I started using MyTube, though, I actually started subscribing to channels, and that's how I use it now. I open it up, and I actually see, new videos from channels I follow, and I get notifications for the ones that I really want to follow. I have my browsing history, and it works across all my devices. And because of that, I'm actually now like a regular YouTube watcher, right? I follow my channels, and that was something I just didn't do before because I never went to YouTube.com. I keep trying to tell Mark Wim that, who he loves YouTube supposedly, but doesn't use this. And I'm like, oh, you should watch this channel. And he's like, oh, I didn't know. And I'm like, just use MyTube. It'll change your behavior. But it's hard to get people to make that switch. But if you never tried it, it's free. Go give it a shot. I do actually donate every month to the developer, Riken Studio, because I think it's such a good app. I should also point out MyTube is sort of the basis or interacts with all these other apps too in critical ways, which brings me up to Legear. Am I pronouncing that right? Legear. Is a new Reddit client. Now, there's been some Reddit clients in the past for UWP, some very good ones. Red Planet comes to mind. This one, though, I really like. So for me, the problem with Reddit is it's obviously a complicated system. It can be complicated. Previous UWP Reddit apps have sort of simplified things, moved things around a little bit. This, to me, more naturally reflects how the website actually looks and how I use it. But it's very modern. It's very fluent. And sort of like, again, no taskbar, no title bar on there, right? It's just all blended into the system. Just looks really beautiful. As MyTube integration. So if someone posts a video, when you click it, it's a MyTube player that's in there. Just a really, really nice sort of experience. And it's just, you have dark mode, you have its adaptive design, modern UI, all this kind of stuff. So really, really cool. So that's Legear. Now we have links for all this on Windows Central, so go check it out. Next up is Spotimo. This is, as you can probably tell, a Spotify app. So we've been talking a lot about Xpotify, which I really enjoy. It's a PWA-based app that has UWP elements, specifically XAML used in the player bar. Looks really good. It's really free. That was just open source too. So if you want to go check out how to make PWA/UWP combo apps, it's a really good example. Spotimo, though, is actually a native app. It's actually a pure UWP one based on, and it uses Spotify stuff.
I'm excited for this.
Yeah. So for all you Groove fans out there, the developer was like, I want to take the best of Groove, but make it Spotify. And that's what this app is. It looks a lot like the Groove app, but it's updated with, again, more modern components that have been announced since Groove. Groove is basically maintenance mode at this point. I wouldn't expect any new features, but it's like Groove updated almost. But you're going to get the full stream support of your premium accounts, which is really nice. You get your playlist support. You can do, of course, your Spotify Connect to play to other devices. And I should mention, Xpotify does a lot of this already too. But it has really beautiful album art. It can even pull in video. So again, here's the MyTube integration. You can play a song. You can hit like a little video icon. And if it finds a video for it on YouTube, it can play that for you, which is just super cool. If you guys remember, of course, Groove actually did do that for a while, which was just really awesome. Yeah. Rest in peace, Groove. But just a really sweet app. If you use Spotify, which I think a lot of us have moved on to now from Groove, really nice. A lot of opportunity here. It will be cool. I'm not sure if it does OneDrive integration. I don't see why that couldn't necessarily happen down the road. So that maybe, of course, you can talk to the developer too and put that in there. But yes, Spotimo, go check it out. The other one is Kanban Inc. So this is a way for sharing. Let's see. I created Kanban Inc. to bridge the gap by using Windows Ink to insert the whiteboard digitally into the task list available across all my Windows 10 devices, thanks to CloudSync. I use Color to replicate the Post-it note style and assisting focus with the ability to open a single task. Along with its ink, it's full screen. So this is just an organizer app that is for people who use Windows Ink and sticky note type situations. It's a way to organize things. It's really nice. I actually haven't launched it yet. I got to download and install that. But for people who like having tasks, go check it out. Again, just a very modern looking app. Really nice. And finally, there's a UWP companion beta. So this is a extension for Chrome browsers. Firefox is coming later, so this will work on a new Edge too. It bridges websites and UWP apps. The app is actually an evolution of MyTube Companion, which some of you probably know, which could open YouTube links in MyTube. It expands MyTube Companion to encompass several other services and third-party UWP apps, allowing you to open things like Spotify and Reddit links in your app of choice. At launch, UWP Companion supports Spotimo, Xpotify, Legear, Red Planet, Mixplay for Mixer, Quarrel, and MyTube. However, all developers are invited to add their apps to their list. So if you've never seen this before, basically when you're browsing, if you click a link, you can have it so that link then opens up your UWP app to get that experience. I have this a lot of times too. If I watch a YouTube video, I don't want to really watch it in the browser. I want to watch it in MyTube because it saves my history. I can do a little bit more. I can do direct share and all this kind of stuff. So this facilitates that beyond MyTube now. And it's, again, just a really cool app. All devs are invited. If you have a UWP app and you want to participate, you can also join this as well. So really cool. And I love, Windows Central, going back to WM Experts and Windows Phone Central years ago, we really prided ourselves on a community-oriented site. So we weren't just publishing, PR releases from Microsoft. We also interacted a lot with and have forums for people who use the technology, and we would obviously promote those people and talk about that stuff. And the other thing we also did was developers. We worked with devs, and I've always encouraged devs like, hey, you got a cool app, let me know about it. And even like telling them, like, we recently did this with now I forgot the name of the app. What's the name of it? It's a photos app. That's skipping my name now. But anyways, I was talking to the dev. Let's see. Actually, I'll get it right here. Open with, Affinity Photo. So Affinity Photo, I'm familiar with it. I haven't used it much. But I ran to the developer and I was just like, listen, anytime you guys do a major update, just shoot me an email, let me know so we can put it on the site. That's different for a lot of devs. They don't really expect that sort of treatment. But I'm like, that's what we do. And so it's nice to get back to our roots here a little bit and promote these apps, support these developers, and get that out there. Hopefully Microsoft will also get to the habit of promoting these apps too, because they're really shining examples of what UWP can do.
Yeah, I think it's important that we do shout out these apps that are utilizing UWP to its fullest capability, because obviously in the news cycle recently, UWP's been getting a lot of slack. A lot of people think it's dead. Lots of people are misrepresenting what UWP is, etc., etc. So when it comes to this whole sort of UWP thing, it's nice to sort of focus on the developers who are actually taking advantage of what Microsoft is offering when it comes to UWP. Even where Microsoft sort of falls down, although it is Microsoft's platform, I wouldn't say they utilize the entire platform to its fullest extent all the time. These apps are doing that, so I'm very excited to see these, and it gives us a good idea of what it would look like if, say, Reddit or Spotify or YouTube actually built an official Windows 10 app, right? Because MyTube is essentially YouTube in UWP. The new Reddit, Liger, is basically Reddit for UWP, and Spotimo is Spotify UWP. Now, I am curious how all three of those services respond to third-party apps. I know YouTube's sort of 50-50. It doesn't like some, but doesn't care about others. MyTube survived this long, so... and then there's Reddit, who doesn't care at all. They're pretty much happy with most third-party apps. And then Spotify, I'm not too sure about Spotify. I don't really often hear about Spotify third-party clients, so... I will be interested.
And we should point out, and the reason why we use it too is because Spotify, they have an official app on Windows 10, and it works. I mean, it plays.
It works, but it sucks.
It's based on Electron. It's a cross-platform system. They just tweaked it up a little bit, put it in the store, which that's why those tools exist. It's exactly for that situation. So it's better than nothing, and I think probably a lot of people are actually kind of fine with it. But if you're want to, I would say, a premium, better experience, a true Windows 10 experience. And what's crazy about it is like this was done by a dev who is not like some superstar, high-paid developer out there. I don't know, but like he's not like some it's a one-man team who spent just hours and I think 7 months making this, but he did it basically on his own. And it goes to show you that even if you're a developer or starting off in development, follow these guys, chat with them. They have a Discord server, learn from them, use the Spotify open source. That's why it's there. Go teach yourself what he did to make that happen and, make this thing. But it goes to show you that a lot of times when these companies, and this is someone pointed out in comments here, why doesn't Windows 10 have more apps? I think it's the platform itself. Apps make sense in certain situations. They make a lot of sense on phones just because using a browser on a phone is still just not ideal. You use them a lot, but they're still not great versus an app experience. Tablets, apps make sense, but you want the browser. I would say it's about 50-50. Laptops, it starts to go down a little bit more. You're in the browser a lot more. On desktops, though, you really do tend to live in the browser. And I think a lot of people just use YouTube.com. And so that's not saying that these apps, I think something like Spotify makes sense to have an app because you could leave it in the background and minimize it, simply with Skype and these kind of things. But it does have to do with the modality. And unfortunately, once an this is the article. I finally did my article, by the way, explaining UWP, its status, and what Microsoft's plans are. So that went live today. Go check it out on Windows Central. It's like why UWP isn't dead, but it has changed over the years. And, Tom Warren from The Verge says that, once phone, went downhill and everything like that, UWP stream was dead. That's true, but I would actually go back further than that. It actually goes back to Windows 8. It's when Windows 8 failed with its new UI, its new start menu. Remember, the whole part of that new start experience was to focus on UWP apps. Once that was received very poorly and Microsoft returned back to a more regular start menu experience with a desktop for, I think that was Windows 8.1. And then Windows 10, they just got rid of that whole default start menu thing. Yeah, you can still do a tablet mode, but it's really not much, right? That was really what killed UWP, if you think about it, because that's where they were going to have the most exposure to people, because everybody had PCs, right? And so once that didn't work, UWP, it just lost a lot of momentum there. Phone didn't help, obviously. I mean, and phone suffered from the fact that a lot of people saw it and were like, oh, that's Windows 8. I don't want Windows 8. That thing sucks. And so phone had all sorts of issues too. But when phone lost, that was one less target. So it definitely didn't help. I'm actually going to go say that Windows 8's failure, from the outset, you can argue UWP's conception was spot on. And had it all worked out, interestingly, we would be all singing the praises of Microsoft today. They were so ahead of the time because now Apple and Google are trying to do it, right? Unfortunately, Windows 8 tanked, and that really, they had to roll back. Windows 10 was, you bought basically Windows 7, but newer. That's what Windows 10 was. And that affected UWP because devs, as I said, don't see a lot of use for UWP on a desktop situation. So,
yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah. Oh, well, go check out these apps, support the devs, leave reviews. Some of them are donationware. Some of them have subscriptions that are optional. But if, at the very least, if you like it, just take that to, literally, you don't need to write a review. You can just give them star reviews. If you want, write a couple sentences, though. It really helps with exposure for developers because the more ratings they get, the higher in the store they get bumped and all that kind of stuff. So at the very least, that's the way you can contribute back to the community. And share these apps, I guess. It's an important thing. All right, let's talk about Google Stadia.
I completely missed this. I saw people laughing about a lot of it, but I haven't tuned into this at all.
Oh, good, because then I have to talk about it.
Yes,
I only have tuned into it as well.
So here's what I got from people responding on Twitter. It costs that much, and also you have to pay for the games. That's ridiculous. That's basically what everyone's saying. So I think it's $11.99 a month, but you will get a handful of games that you can use the services. But most games you have to pay full price for, which is a bummer because who's going to do that? In theory, right? Why would you buy a game on a streaming platform that can only be used on that streaming platform? You're not going to do that, are you? Unless there's apps for Xbox and PlayStation where you can download those games later, which I don't believe there is. You can only stream these games all the time. There's no way to sort of download them locally for when you are offline. That's a big problem. Whereas with xCloud and Microsoft's version of this, while there will be online streaming capabilities, you will have the option to download these games to your Xbox, to play them offline or locally for high, full high resolution quality and et cetera, et cetera. So this is going to be... I'm going to be very interested to see how Google tackles this market. I think with YouTube they have leverage, but I'm not sure how far that will take them.
Yeah, the whole and this goes back to, and I was just reading an article here from April 11th, and it cites Xbox Chief Marketing Officer Mike Nichols, who claims and says that the biggest issue for Google Stadia is going to be the lack of content.
Yeah.
And that was totally on display here this week. That's not really I'm not trying to dig on Google. It's a tough problem. There's a reason why companies just don't walk into gaming. It's
a reason why Windows Phone failed.
Yeah. And so, there's a couple titles here and there. Otherwise, you have to buy the game without a console. That means if Google Stadia folds, who knows what happens to your game. Meanwhile, the numbers we see for xCloud is 1,900 games are basically ready to go, and then there's 3,500 total that could be done without retooling the game, which is really the big deal. That's what Microsoft's really promoting here, is the fact that you developers and studios could just take their games and basically not change it and just go, there we go, put on xCloud, and it's done. And so that's going to be a huge deal. Now, some people will be like, "Why only play 2 or 3 games?" Okay, that's true too. But I would argue that the people who are going to start using this initially are going to be the hardcore gamers, and for them, content is always king. And so Microsoft still has an advantage here. Now, you do need a console, I think, for xCloud to work. It's an extension of your Xbox, not just a standalone streaming service.
No, I believe you will be able to just use. Yeah, I believe you will be able to stream to your phone via just a server that Microsoft has spinning up.
Wow. So then, yeah, I mean, that's actually kind of how I thought it would work, but I wasn't too sure. So then it really begs the question, because it's like, why? Why would you use Google then?
No, exactly right. So it's like Google has half the story. They don't have the other half, where you do have the option to download it to your Xbox and play it on your big TV at home without having to stream it, right? I think that's a big part of the whole streaming thing. The streaming idea is a nice addition to your gaming life. You can have it, you can play it at home, maybe, I need to go on a train now. Oh, that's okay, I can just continue what I'm playing on my phone. That's the cool idea.
And I think the funny thing is, I saw a lot of people going like, "Why happens if Google cancels this?" Because
right?
Google does have a history of canceling projects. I mean, everybody teases Microsoft, but Google doesn't fear canceling major things. I mean, it canceled that Google Glass. Now it's still technically in development, and they're toning it back a bit. But that was hardware. They also had that speakers, and they've had all sorts of sort of failures along the way. So. Yeah, I don't know. This is an interesting space. There's no clear winners here yet. Stuff hasn't launched, but let's stay tuned for Sunday. Microsoft has their E3 announcement where they'll definitely detail this a lot more, presumably pricing, dates. They're going to definitely be on stage and be like, Google has 10 games. We have 2,000. They're definitely going to be doing that and really hyping that part up. And as you say, the Xbox console. It's not just Xbox too, right? Because it's about the Xbox Live system that a lot of gamers enjoy.
It's the ecosystem.
That Google doesn't bring. And so I wish Google all the luck here. I think competition is good. Listen, I think they're going to excel in some areas. Don't be surprised if Google actually maybe gets some better performance sometimes too. They are good at cloud and streaming after years of experience with YouTube. They know how to manage networks. So I fully imagine they're going to be good at some of this stuff. But as far as to where the customers gravitate to, it's going to be. I think Microsoft still has the advantage here.
Me too. Should be very interesting. Before we move on to our E3 predictions, a few people in the comments keep mentioning it to us. Some Windows dev account mentioned McLaren this week or something.
So what happened? Yeah. So this is it's Laura Butler, who's a vice president at Microsoft, also a technical fellow. Really well known, one of the original people to work on Windows Phone 7. Her and I have had some conversations. It's a funny video too. So she's been doing these sort of like throwbacks and talking about past the history of these devices and operating systems and sort of some stories behind them, which has really been kind of cool. And today's focused on 2 unreleased Windows phones. One of them was McLaren, which we've covered extensively. That's the one that has the hover and 3D touch stuff. Yeah. And the other one was going to be a sequel to the 1520, which was going to have an external keyboard and to be used as a little phablet type device computer.
Didn't know about that one.
Which goes to show you where Microsoft's thinking was, and I think still is in some ways.
Yeah.
She really talked about, though, how typing was going to be really good with McLaren because of the touch system for the keyboard, which then raises the question, of course, for a lot of people. It's like, so what's the status of that technology? Like, if it's so good for keyboards, are they going to eventually bring it back? I don't know. Nothing we've seen so far suggests that they are, but they certainly have it still. So, like, they could absolutely bring it back at some point. It was also a funny video because she gives me a shout out on it because she promised me someday the inside scoop on Windows Phone. I imagine probably if she leaves the company, because some of it's probably real insider, because Windows Phone has had a rocky history, right? And I think there were some real, you think of Joe Belfiore, you think of Laura Butler, Casey Lemson, some people who worked on this who were like really passionate, absolutely biggest fans of it. And for them to see what's happened to it, they're not happy about it. Just like I'm not happy about it. I go out there and I explain, okay, this is what they got to do now. They got to shift. And none of us are happy about it. There you have a little bit more skin in the game because they actually created this stuff and put a lot of passion to it. And I think a lot of us would argue they had the right ideas. Like when you look at Windows Phone 7 and the UI concepts and the rethinking of that experience, it was just so good and sort of ahead of the game. But so it makes these videos sort of fun to sort of get that. But yeah, so go check that out on the Windows Dev account on Twitter. I retweeted it. So.
And if you're interested in the McLaren device itself, you can check out Windows Central because me and Dan did an extensive review of it because we got hold of one of the prototypes and we did a hands-on review and all that good stuff. So give that a read if you're interested in one of the rather unique cancelled Windows phones that never went to be.
Mm-hmm. It's always a tough thing to cover that stuff because it's like. Yeah, it was supposed to have. She said it was supposed to have a better camera than the Lumia 1020.
Yeah, our prototype didn't.
It wasn't finished. But it was all software and firmware that needed to be worked. But the hardware was there apparently. But as to why that was canceled, that's part of the inside story. I've speculated in the past because we actually broke the story that it was canceled. Yeah,
you did.
Which I remember that because I was just like,
no way.
Well, in a way, I was like. I got this major scoop. And Microsoft confirmed it hours later. They're like, you had pretty good intel on that. But at the same time, I was devastated because I was like, this was the flagship device. This was going to be their next big thing. Like, this was the next big post-Lumia 930, 1020 device. And they canceled it. And I knew when you cancel a flagship phone like that, it's not like a plan B. It's not like, well, get out the other flagship we've been secretly working on like that. Yeah. So that's when the HTC One came out. That became eventually the plan B, which I love that phone, but that didn't make up for it. As to why it was canceled, this was up in the air at the time with Microsoft and Nokia merging and coming together. And there were issues going on with the hardware, I think. And I think there was issues with sourcing some of the materials needed for that technology.
Didn't they also do focus groups where users just found it confusing?
I didn't hear that, but that wouldn't necessarily surprise me. Again, sometimes Microsoft is sort of ahead of the curve. But then again, I mean, Apple introduced gesture support, 3D touch things, and I still to this day don't ever use them.
They're killing it now. The next iPhones won't have it, apparently.
I mean, every time I see it and I try, I'm like, oh yeah, that's there. Yeah. Like it is cool.
It is cool.
I just can't train my brain to use it.
I kind of put the blame on Apple a little bit for that though, because they do a very poor job of showing it to the user that it exists. So there's not really any indication that you can do that in areas. So you have to sort of have knowledge of it going in. Where if you're a non-techie and you just bought your first iPhone, you're never going to know that. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe we'll see this tech come back someday in another device. Obviously, I think Microsoft's research is probably still doing a lot with it. It was a fun trip down memory lane. But I knew once McLaren was canceled, I'm like, oh, we're kind of screwed now for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And then the next one was the Lumia 950, and we try to love it, but that was a device full of compromises, and so
unapologetically plastic.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of failure points with Windows Phone, but I would say canceling McLaren was the real big one. I think had McLaren stayed there and come out and worked, I think it would have kept the wheels going. I'm not sure it would have changed the long-term trajectory of anything because at that time the story was budget phones and making really good budget phones. That's where the threat was coming from. But yeah, go check out that video. It's kind of fun. Right.
So all right. Predictions for E3. Do you have any?
They'll talk about stuff from Xbox. So the biggest thing, well, not the biggest thing, the one I kind of find interesting is that we're supposed to get an Elite 2 controller finally.
Oh, fine! Really, I didn't know that. I'm excited now.
Yeah, I mean, we've been hearing about Elite controllers for sequels for a couple of years.
Yeah, we have.
But yeah, supposedly this one is finally going to be announced here, which I think would make sense for that to happen. I won't be there at E3 this year covering it. A little bit sad. On the other hand, I'm so sick of traveling. I'm kind of glad not to be on another plane. I really just want to shut everything up. But yeah, so the I don't know. We did see some earlier leaks about this controller. It's going to have like more buttons on it, more configurability. I think the trigger button. Yeah, there's gonna be Bluetooth because that was always a weird thing with the Elite controller. You
Yeah,
couldn't use it with your PC because it was only Xbox Connect. But now it'll have Bluetooth. It'll have different stage. I think 3 stages now for the trigger buttons and some
very
more
nice.
configurability. I assume also they worked on some of the quality control problems they had with the rubber pads falling off. To be fair, I've never had that happen. I have two Elite controllers, the white and the black one. They're both pristine. Maybe I don't game enough. That could be a fair point. Um, but that is something we're expecting as well. Obviously, xCloud, details around that, demonstrations of that. I expect them to really have a lot of numbers out there. There's also a rumor. Should we talk about that? Did Jez give us permission to talk about
I
that?
don't know what you're talking about, so I can't tell you.
The thing with your Xbox
No, I
playing,
don't think he. I think he simply can't talk about
we can't
that.
talk about that?
No,
Okay.
let's not risk it. So we won't talk about that. Sorry, guys.
Let's just say they have another card apparently in their sleeves regarding xCloud and nodes, and I don't know, it's cool stuff. Reminds me of the Tesla ride sharing network that's supposedly coming, but we'll let Jez break that story
Yeah.
if and when it actually comes out. So yeah, a lot of xCloud stuff, and then of course the big thing will be games, right? So actually, there's a few games that already leaked out. One of them was from one of the studios Microsoft have bought. Now, Bleeding Edge, which actually looks kind of all right. It looks like it's one of these melee type games. Yeah, I don't know. I'm actually excited about Star Wars Fallen Order, I think it's called,
Yeah.
regarding the Jedi and stuff like that. I'm a huge fan. I was a huge fan of, what was the Star Wars game a couple years ago? Where you played like a rogue Jedi, gray Jedi guy. And they made a sequel to it too.
Force Unleashed.
Yeah, Force
That
Unleashed.
was a good game.
Force Unleashed was like my jam. Like that's all I wanted. Like, so I have like force abilities and
Yeah.
lightsabers. I can just literally go around and I mean, doing a force push on stormtroopers or grabbing them and just tossing
Yeah.
them, or you can even grab TIE fighters and just crush them. Like to me, that was just like everything I've ever wanted in a video game. I actually went back and started playing the sequel to that just because it was so fun. And plus, you get to fight Darth Vader. Like I don't know, that was it. Didn't like, but the sequel was terrible because they like canceled it halfway through, so it was like half the game. Uh, and that's where that whole studio fell apart, Lucas Studio. So I'm excited about this. If it's a full-fledged game, could give me that passion again. What about you? Are you expecting?
Well, I'm hoping we're going to get more on Halo Infinite. I'd be surprised if we
Oh,
don't.
right.
To be honest, I would love to see a gameplay trailer or some gameplay. I'd also like to see a story based trailer because so far all we've had is a teaser trailer. We've had no story beats, no gameplay. I'd like to see a bit of gameplay, maybe even if it's just multiplayer. But I'd also like to have some story beats. I'd love to know the sort of general plot of what's this Halo Infinite's about because I'm one of the few people who still plays Halo for the story. I'm invested in that story. I want to know what happens to Cortana. I want to know what happens to the Chief. I'm very excited.
Cortana's dead. Oh wait, are we talking about?
Cortana is evil right now. She's about to take over the world or the universe. So
Uh,
I'm excited to hear about that. I'm also
Fire
excited.
flowers. That always works.
I'm
Some
also excited to
shoots.
hear more about Halo on PC as well. Halo Master Chief Collection on PC. I assume they're going to announce a release date for the initial betas and whatnot. I'd be surprised if they don't. And maybe even, I don't know. Is there any other games they can add to my Master Chief Collection? I guess not. I guess that's all of them at this point. Other
I
than
want
Halo
the new
5.
Gears of War.
Gears 4. Is it 4 or 5?
I I forgot.
I think it's Gears 5.
I think it's 5. Yeah.
Yeah, Gears 5. I'm not interested. I don't care about Gears 5.
My friends and I, like, we haven't played it in a while, but we were once a week. And some of these are my married friends with children, so I never get to see them. They're permanently in parent prison for the next 20 years, where I'm like, gaming. So I still play with my friends. I actually really big fan of Gears. I like that studio a lot. I think the people behind it are just like, it's just one of the not that all games are created by passionate people, but the people behind Gears are just like just that's just what they do. It's
They
just they
love it.
just make
Yeah.
Gears, right? And they're just like, it's like, I went up and visited the studio in Vancouver. I got to, and it was funny because I went, not Jez. But it was cool because I wasn't a huge Gears fan. I kind of came one after that, but like I came out of there. I interviewed the head of the studio, which was funny because it was like a big deal. And I'm like, I played your game like a couple times. So, but yeah, I'm really excited about that. And they also are doing a lot more now with PC, right? And you alluded to this with the Halo stuff. That this is under Phil Spencer. He wants to. The big thing this week, 2 weeks ago, was that Win32 games could just go right into the store now. Apparently, I think this is more for a lot of older games that the devs aren't gonna. It's not a lot of work. You don't need to rewrite your game in UWP to go into the store. That's not how it works. You just recompile it. It's still a little bit of work, but it's not like rewriting code or nothing like that. But now Spencer's making it even easier. Like there was a small barrier to get to the store. Now there's like almost no barrier. And this will be good because I want the Microsoft Store for gaming to basically be like Steam. And I've said this endlessly. I think for me, for gaming, yeah, I like the AAA titles, Gears and Halo and all this kind of stuff. Forza's amazing. But I also like a lot of the indie stuff that devs create. And if you want that, a lot of it is on Steam, right? And it's one reason I praised Nintendo Switch. Because Nintendo Switch, yeah, I can buy the $60 Mario game and it's great, or Zelda. But for me, I spent a lot of my money on the indie titles, the side scrollers, because you get so much more radical interpretations of what a game is. Just a lot of people really just going out there flying their freak flags of experimentation and gaming. And I want that for the Windows Store, right? I want to see these cool type Steam games, $7, $10 coming to the store that we can just play on PC. Because I put Steam on some of my computers, but I hate their clients. I don't like anything about Steam outside of the games, but I don't like its system. But if Microsoft Store can do this, that's where I really want to see moving on. Speaking of, and I'm 4 years late to this, I'm just going to say Broforce is one of the best games I've ever played. It came to the Switch in like September, I think, or October, and I just got it because it was on sale for $7. And it's just a hilarious side scroller. It's on Steam. You can just get it for PC. I recommend it for Switch. For me, Switch for me is like one of those things where like I love it, but I don't use it often. But this game has gotten me to like use my Switch all the time. But yeah, go check out Broforce. It's just it's hilarious. I highly recommend it. But hopefully we'll see more of that kind of push from Microsoft too, with more indie Steam titles, and that's what the store turns. So
we're also expecting Microsoft to tease the next generation Xbox. I don't think they'll show it. Right. I think we might get another Project Scorpio type announcement. Yeah, just sort of touting its raw power, but they won't give us specs. They won't show it to us. They won't give us a name. They might just say next year, because we are expecting it to launch the fall.
Yeah, so let's go back to how they did Scorpio. I'm actually kind of sad now I won't be there. So if you've never been to the E3 announcement, it's held in the Microsoft Center. I forgot what they call it. It was the old Microsoft Nokia. Theater. Yeah, it was the Nokia Theater, which is always cool. Yeah. And then it became Microsoft. It's one of the few things they kept from Nokia. But when you go in there, it's just like it's like a rock show, man. The lights go dark. They got this green lights everywhere. Everybody's got these like green bracelets on, and the audio is just insane. Like it's so loud. Like when they like the subwoofer will just come on, it'll just shake the place. Yeah. It's hard not to get excited for it. So I'm actually kind of sad I won't be there.
I wish I was there last year for the Halo Infinite reveal, because that would have made me cry.
Sure.
If I was
there. You get chills. Like, that's one thing I do like going there, because I'm really not a hardcore gamer, but I think my perspective is important in that sense. It's easy sort of to win over like nerds or, fans of stuff or get them to hate your product. For me, though, I'm just like, hey, I occasionally game. Show me what you got. And like I always like get chills at that stuff. But I forgot where I was going with that. But it was cool.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, I'm excited. So for those who don't know, Microsoft's E3 press conference is happening on Sunday at some time. I don't know the actual time, unfortunately. It's usually like a 2-hour keynote, and if you've
just under 2 hours.
If you've never tuned into E3, Microsoft's E3 keynote, what it essentially is just game trailers after game trailers, and every now and then someone from a game studio will come out and sort of detail some game that they're working on, and then they'll do some cool things like Phil Spencer will come out and sort of detail what the plan is for Xbox in the next year. xCloud stuff will be there. Hopefully next gen Xbox stuff will be there.
And not just Phil Spencer. Phil Spencer plus a leather jacket.
So yeah, there'll be some and some T-shirt underneath that people
and a T-shirt underneath.
To see.
I knew what I was going to say was the original Scorpio announcement. So yeah, how I expect this to go down is they're going to talk about its specifications. They'll talk about some of the technology that they worked on it. They'll probably talk about some of the processor. I'm pretty sure you'll hear teraflops.
Yeah,
mentioned a few times. and you'll probably get some weird like teaser video footage at the inside that you won't be able to really make sense of, but it's going to be like some new cooling system that they invented. Uh, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get a project name for it because that seemed to work really well. I forgot, even downstairs, I was setting up my system again recently, and I forgot I had the Project Scorpio Xbox One X, and I forgot how cool that thing actually is.
Yeah.
What a cool idea that was that they did that.
Mm-hmm.
I was very excited for it. But I hope they do that again this year. Although the name is Scarlet, right? So I don't know what they do.
So
like
yeah, Scarlet is the family of devices, but there are individual code names for. So they're planning to launch 2 consoles next year: a sort of cheaper version. Cheap is a strong word, like a more budget-friendly version, and a more powerful version. The more powerful one's called Anaconda, and the lower-end version is called Lockhart. Now, Lockhart, I believe, is supposed to be a tiny bit more powerful than the Xbox One X currently, and Anaconda is supposed to leapfrog the PlayStation 5. So there will be an option for 2 people. So if you're somebody who's price conscious, you can buy the cheaper Xbox 2 or the next generation Xbox, which will be more powerful than the Xbox One X. But if you want the most power, you can opt for Anaconda, which will be, I guess, $100 or $200 more, slightly more expensive than the PlayStation 5, but will be more powerful in every regard. So that's going to be quite fun, I think.
Anaconda doesn't quite have the same ring as Scorpio.
Project Anaconda? Yeah, no, it doesn't.
It's not too aggressive.
Scarlet, I guess they could say Project Scarlet.
Lockhart works. That's all right. But I'm not going to buy that. I need the powerful version for I watch.
But they genuinely might just make up a really cool code name and just use that. Because I don't, why not? Because once a code name becomes public, it's no longer a code name. A code name's supposed to be secret. It's supposed to hide the project you're working on. But if you're announcing code names, then they're not code names anymore. They're marketing strategies. So, yeah.
Oh, well. Should be interesting. I'll be tuning in. Watch it on your Xbox. It's the easiest way to go watch it. You can watch
if you watch it on Mixer, they give you like goodies throughout the whole show.
It's true. You can watch it on Mixer, yeah. So that's probably how... Yeah, I forgot. Because they used to have a separate app which would do the stream, but now I'm imagine you can just do it through Mixer.
Yeah.
So should be very exciting. Of course, pay attention to Windows Central all weekend. We have our whole gaming team and people. Everybody's just they're going to be publishing a lot of stuff. So just pay attention to Windows Central. If you don't care about gaming, take the next few days off. Maybe the next week. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of gaming coverage on Windows Central. That's just the way it is. But it's okay. Things will return to normal after that. But it should be kind of a fun few days. So, very exciting. I think that about wraps it up. We covered, I think, most of the major news.
Yeah, that's it. We're all done for this week. A shorter podcast than usual.
Well, we're 53 minutes. We're doing pretty well. That's all right. I gotta go mow the lawn. Okay. Exciting. So, very good. Anyways, you can find me on Twitter at Daniel_Rubino, Rubino, and follow Zach at ZACBOWDE. And you can hit us up with questions. Tell us what we could do better on this show. I should mention we are doing this live every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, except for today, which was 3 p.m. Eastern time. So, bet around there. We usually announce it, though, on WindowsCentral.com and on Twitter, so you can follow us for news there. But we're going to do Q&A now, so if you're not listening to this live, unfortunately, you don't get to hear that part, but you are always encouraged to join us live and ask us questions as we do this. Otherwise, as always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Man, our audio editor is going to kill me this week. I have so much interference on this mic. Yes. So, yes, we'll hang around for about 10 minutes. We'll do it a bit shorter this week because I do have to go. If you have any questions, now's the time to ask, and we will answer them. Saving your recording.
Let me type that. Do you actually have a decent internet connection this time, Zach?
Seems to be. It seems to have held up. So that's fun. Since mobile is not part of Microsoft's UWP strategy anymore, does that mean true UWP apps or Seashell won't scale at all to small screens anymore? No, UWP apps, if you're building a true universal app, you can always, as a developer, choose to scale it to small screens. Because, there might be a small tablet in the future or something. Seashell, While they were working on a shell experience for small screens, I don't believe they're working on one right now. But that doesn't mean they can't work on one in the future. That's the beauty of C Shell. It's easy to pick up and just adapt on the fly. So UWP apps can still scale to small screens if the developer chooses to make it so it can do that. But it's not a requirement, and it never was a requirement. You've always been able to build UWP apps that target one specific device. It's never been a requirement to target both mobile and PC. From the beginning, in 2015, a developer could build a universal Windows app that only targets desktop, which means it doesn't have, an adaptable UI or one that.
Well,
go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, even at Builds, I was watching some of the talks there. They do recommend, even if you're just doing a desktop UWP, that it absolutely has an adaptive UI.
Sure, because you can snap it, right? And that helps.
Right, snapping it, you can resize it, you can do mini mode. It's funny because I think what they really mean is if you're targeting phones, you really just have to think about if that's the primary experience, because phones, you can't minimize the window or shrink and all that. So it's going to be a full screen at that aspect ratio. What they really mean is that they want people to think about that and to think about how the app is organized and laid out and intuitive, because the way the menus are going to be used is going to be a little bit differently. That's really all they mean when they mean target mobile, you just need to think about that target. Now that that doesn't exist, with the UWP and the WinForms and WinUI and all this stuff, you get the scalability and the shrinking and stuff and moving around. And that's still super important. And so they recommend that. So I don't see without, and when we say without mobile, Microsoft hasn't actually deprecated mobile. I think that's the important thing here. Like there's not parts of UWP that have now been removed as an option for developers. Developers can still target mobile. It's still being part of it, gets all the benefits, all the fluency stuff that's out there. So it still exists. You just don't see it in action as much. But like if you look at today's apps that came out with UWP, it has all those same elements as mobile does. It's really just a way of thinking about it, just like how Xbox. So same with Xbox. So Xbox is the opposite of mobile, where it's going to be the orientation is just full screen 16:9 usually for your TV. But like mobile, you can't resize things or shrink it down or window it. So you need to think about, you have less to think about. You just got to think about that organization, So that's how they mean when they talk about UWP and targeting and all this kind of stuff. It's just for the developer to take a moment and think about how that experience would be in that form factor. So
I heard the next Xbox was called Xbox Infinity. Fake news. That rumor pops up every single time there's a new Xbox around the corner. There was the same rumor when the Xbox One was in development, codenamed Durango at the time. And back then it made more sense because Windows 8 was a thing, and the whole idea was the logo was going to be Xbox and then 8, but on its side, which is the Infinity logo. That's cool, or the Infinity symbol even. But no, it never came to be. Infinity, I think personally is a cool name for a console, but everyone who I say this to thinks it's really kind of tacky and cheesy, so I guess they won't go with it. Do you think the next gen console will have Halo Infinite? Yes. I believe, as far as I'm aware, Halo Infinite is a cross-generation title, which means it will launch on Xbox One, and it will also launch on the next generation Xbox as well. Any news on whether or not the Office apps will return to the store? They got pulled by Microsoft a while ago. No, as far as I'm aware, Microsoft did that deliberately. They have purposefully made it so the Office apps in the Microsoft Store now redirect you to the website to download the desktop installer. I have no idea why. As far as I'm aware, that is only limited to Windows 10 desktop, which means Windows Core OS devices will still be able to grab them from the Microsoft Store. But we'll have to see what happens on that front.
This is a quick one. When will be ready the next smartphone with Windows 10 Pro? No plans. As far as we know, there are no immediate plans for any kind of phone device. Now, if Andromeda comes out maybe 2 years from now, it'll be dependent upon how Windows Lite and Core OS do and how that ecosystem evolves and if there are more UWP apps and what that story is. I don't think they want to do a phone device right now because it's just... it's that market is just too cutthroat. So then one other one is in regards to the dual display device that Microsoft has been displaying internally. What are your thoughts on that being the next iteration of the Surface Pro line? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it's too early for that.
Yeah, I think they would keep those lines separate. The Surface Pro name still has this Pro They can put a
It's
Core i7 in there,
yeah,
16 gigs of
and I'm pretty
RAM.
sure it's still the most popular Surface, right?
Yeah, it's going to be, it can have fans in it. It's
Yeah,
going to be, there's an expectation there.
yeah.
I think whatever this foldable device is, it won't be like the idea to have a fanned Core i7 in it is probably ludicrous, right? You can't, that'd be a weird experience of a folding device and fans and venting. I don't know.
I
So
guess you could have it eventually, but there's no need for it on the form factor.
yeah, I mean, you're seeing a lot of abilities now to do like a Core i5 without fans, and so there are a lot more fanless options now. So this kind of device, like you don't want vents on it if it's going to be kind of small and foldable. Even the ThinkPad X1 is not a fan device; it's passively cooled. So so this is going to be a passively cooled device. I'm not 100% sure, about 95% sure though. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. So that automatically cuts off what I would consider being a pro level type device, right? Because pro level devices, you want a Core i7. Not only that, does the Core i7 Surface Pro, it's 15 watt. The TDP can actually scale higher, so you can actually get a higher boost speed out of it. Like so, that's pro level performance that people expect. And I don't think this device. I think this device will be powerful, but this is more towards a light computing surface, like in between Surface Go and Surface Pro is how I would think about it. Maybe down the road at some point they can figure that out for Surface Pro if it's received well, but that's what I would anticipate.
Question: Windows Core OS will have a lot of UI features for dual screens, but what about Windows 10? A lot of the PCs at Computex had OEM solutions. Is Microsoft going to add something to Windows 10 regarding that? I have no idea. C Shell can run on desktop. There has been upbringing internally for C Shell on desktop. I don't know if there's plans to actually ship that on Windows 10 publicly. As far as I'm aware, most of the dual screen laptops shown at Computex, although they were running Windows 10 there, will be Windows Lite devices, unless they're like super powerful, in which case obviously they will
Yeah, I
be.
think he's referring to the Asus ZenBook
Oh yeah, but that's yeah
Pro
okay. So
2.
that will be Windows 10, but that is Asus is building its own sort of, as you mentioned, its own software for that. Because it's a unique sort of screen size, screen and use case for that. I don't believe Microsoft is working on anything for native support on that. I could
Yeah,
be
and
I could be wrong, but I don't know.
that device comes from originally out of an Intel design, just
Yeah.
like the Yoga Book 2,
Hmm.
which I actually have behind me. I started using it again. Um, And so, yeah, it's true. Asus has just a few tweaks that they did to customize it to make snapping. Because I tried to do it initially where you drag the window from the top screen to the lower one and you just have to grab the title bar and just hold it.
Yeah.
And you could do it like that, but obviously it's not great. They made a method where you grab the title bar, you just move it like an inch, and a little window pops up with three options, and then you just move your cursor to that, and it'll snap it down to the one below. Such a shortcut. No reason why Microsoft can't do that, but I think it's probably a little early. That device, Zach's right, is like it's very unique at this
Yeah.
point, so it doesn't really warrant UI stuff. But yeah, down the road, I mean, we'll see though, because I agree with Zach too. I think whatever Windows Lite it's going to be like, we'll have these shortcuts in mind because
Sure.
again, they're building that OS conceptually with dual screens in mind, so they got to think about use case stuff. By the way, I did see like at Build, I was watching one of the videos and they showed some of the new UI elements coming to UWP and stuff like that. And they have like stuff like particles. So
Yeah.
like you can like move objects around and like particles will fly around the screen and you can interact with the particles. And it's gonna be like and if you look at the new My2 4.0, the animations in it are really, really cool. Like so we're starting to get some of that UI polished animation stuff, radial menus, and animations, radial animations, I should say. So I'm starting to have hopes that this is going to be actually a very pretty operating system, something that you want to interact with, and you can be like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
that's nice. That's
That's
not
nice.
Windows 10 desktop," you know.
Any idea what the 5 devices at the October event might be? I don't know if we can. Do you want to talk about this or not?
Yeah, I mean, well, the speculation is what Surface Laptop 3,
Yeah, Surface
new
Pro
Surface
7.
Pro 7, yeah, Surface Book 3, and then it's up in the air. I mean, it could be
Centaurus.
Centaurus, and then possibly those Surface earbuds.
Either that or an ARM-based Surface Go.
Or an ARM-based Surface Go, yeah. And yeah, because the earbuds might just be like, oh, we have this cool accessory,
Yeah,
like we
accessory.
have a new mouse, that kind of thing. Um, yeah, but we are starting to hear that this October event might be bigger than anticipated. There may
Yeah.
be actually like a lot of devices announced, which would be really interesting. Which, if that's the case, if that happens, and I really think this is sort of like Microsoft, like 2015 Windows 10. Like, all right, we're doing a new phase. It's almost like the Marvel universe, right? We got these new devices, new concepts for how what computers should be. We have this like new operating system thing that's coming out, like, and that may be the push of that. But that's me speculating.
A few people are asking about 19H2 and its current whereabouts. I believe we will hear about 19H2 in the next couple of weeks. I believe they are planning to talk about that this month. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that. I think it's very soon at this point. Not that it's going to be anything exciting, but they will start talking about how you can test 19H2 and what the plan is there very soon.
Yeah, 15-inch Surface laptop would be lovely. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's kind of weird. Yeah, because the Surface laptop's 13.5 inches, so maybe they can do like a 15, or 15.5.
Yeah.
I agree, though. Yeah, give me a Surface laptop too that's like 15-inch. Maybe throw an MX 250 in there for a little bit of more graphics power. And be the big interesting question. These would be like Ice Lake devices, the 10 nanometer stuff, which would then give them really good battery life because they would have pretty big batteries. Thunderbolt 3, don't forget with Ice Lake, Intel's 10th generation chips. Thunderbolt 3 is built onto the chip itself. That means they don't need a separate controller. This is a big issue for OEMs. I've talked about this in the past. When an OEM makes a device and they want Thunderbolt 3, they have to license it out from Intel. They have to get the controller for it, put it on the board. The length of the wires for the PCIe to the port is totally dependent upon the performance. So you need to make it all close. There's a lot of planning. Like Thunderbolt 3 isn't like just a switch they turn on or a software thing. It's actually like a lot of engineering. And even how far that port is from the controller totally matters. But that kind of goes away with Intel 10th generation. Now the Thunderbolt 3 is built into the chipset, so you get it for free, and there's no licensing on there either, so you don't have to pay extra for it, because Thunderbolt 3 is not cheap. That means, of course, future Surface devices, including Surface Pro, Surface Book, and Surface Laptop, should have Thunderbolt 3. And the rumor is also that it's going to have the magnetic Type-C connector. So they're going to get rid of the Surface Connect, but they're going to keep that technology, but it'll be a Type-C one. There's been patents for that, and I'm hearing that may be the case this time, which could be the best of both worlds. If it just has LTE, one of those devices have LTE in it, I'll be very ecstatic.
Right, a couple more questions, and then we will be heading off. How does Cortana work on Android devices? Is it good, bad, ugly, just, or is it like Bixby or the default Android assistant? So it's okay. I mean, if you only use your assistant to sort of ask basic questions and reschedule events and whatnot, and you use a Microsoft account, then the Cortana assistant is pretty good. But I think it can do play music and stuff. It does most of what an assistant can do. I can't think of anything it can't do on Android. On iOS, it's very limited because of Apple's restrictions, but on Android, I think it's pretty capable.
Yeah, I mean, functionally, they're the same on iOS and Android, but what Zach means is on Android, you can actually set it as your default
Yeah,
voice assistant.
and you can
So
ask
if
it
you
to
hit a
make
button,
calls and send texts and
yeah, and has
do
that
whatnot.
integration. And so
Yeah.
it actually works pretty well. Yeah, the benefit of Cortana on Android or even iOS is the cross-platform stuff. I can tell it to do a reminder, and that goes to all my systems, including my PC.
Mm.
And it integrates things with like To Do and, of course, OneNote and all this other stuff. So, of course, your calendar and Outlook. So it's really beneficial there. I use it on those systems. And I did have a massive failure with Siri the other day. I was like, "Hey, is it going to rain tonight?" It looks like there's no rain tonight. I'm like, "Okay, cool." Like an
Yeah.
hour later, it starts raining. I'm like, you weren't
Damn
even
it.
close. It was like a downpour. It wasn't like sprinkles. It's like that wasn't even close, man. So I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, don't use Siri for weather. Um,
Will Zach splurge for more than 8 gigabytes of RAM in his next Surface device?
yeah,
I probably won't. I mean, 8 gigabytes of RAM has done me very well up until today. I rarely need to do any like heavy tasks on my laptop. To be honest, the Surface laptop is probably better suited for me, but I need USB-C for some USB drives I have. So, but yeah, I mean, 8 gigabytes of RAM for just writing articles and browsing the web is more than fine. It depends on the price of the 16 gig models, I guess. If I can save a good few $100 on getting an 8 gig, then I'll get the 8 gig.
I was asking about your Surface headphones, but I just want to point out I'm wearing. We just announced the new Kraken X, these Razer ones. So they're nice. They do have this little mic, but you can't hide it. They cost $50 though. They're cheap, and the benefit is they're super light. They're like the lightest headphones I've worn for gaming headsets over the ear, and they have surround sound 7.1, which is hard to find at the $50 range. But if Razer Kraken X, I'm just gonna promote them. They sent it to me, so I'm just gonna be like,
Oh
and I couldn't
yeah,
find it.
it was WWDC this week. We didn't talk about Apple.
That's true.
Oh well.
Yeah.
So someone's actually asking, do you think the iPad Pro will become a contender against the Surface Pro? I think if Apple keeps up and actually adds full
Yes.
mouse support at some point and windowed apps, then yeah, absolutely. But until then, even though they're doing iPad OS now, I still think it's very much tablety.
It's getting close,
It is
but
getting
yeah,
close.
as I said, like and they do have with the iOS 13, they have some mouse support in
It's
there.
it's like, come on, Apple, you could have done this better.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I that's why I think it's imperative that Microsoft gets ahead of this with Windows Core OS, which is
Yeah,
basically their answer to this. Um,
I honestly think Microsoft are quite lucky that Apple is dragging its feet when it
yeah, oh,
comes
yeah,
to
totally.
turning the iPad Pro into a laptop.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's it for today. We'll be back. What day is it next week? The 14th. Yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll be talking all about um, E3 and whatnot. But until then, thank you guys for tuning in, and we shall see you next time.
Take care, everyone.